UFC Fight Night Derrida vs. Allen. Melissa Croden vs. Tayanara Lisboa. Not too much to go off of for this fight. Melissa Croden, size advantage, hasn't really beat anyone of value or anyone notable, whereas Tayanara has beat better opponents with better records or just had better performances, even if it's a loss against people with better records. Kind of rate her performances more, has a couple of wins by submission, so she's able to mix it up a bit. I'm going to go Tayanara Lisboa 30-27. Azamat Bakov vs. Yusri Belgori. I'm going to go Azamat Bakov. Better grappler, more explosive and powerful. And then this one's more subjective, but I mean, has a good personality, bit of plot armor, you know what I'm saying? He'd be chatting a lot of shit on Twitter. So I'm going to kind of just trust in Bakov as a prospect or as a personality. And I'm going to say he gets this done, just being the more skillful fighter, kind of just better all around. He's going to be able to get Yusri down, and I think he'll be able to TKO him. I think he's going to ground and pound him. I think Bakov's going to be able to get him down. I think he's going to land ground and pound, and cumulative damage in round 2, he's going to be able to find a TKO. Yusri's trained with Pereira, but that's about it. He hasn't really beat anyone significant. He lost his fight on Contender Series, and to his credit, that fight has not aged horribly, but I don't think he's good enough to beat Azamat Bakov. Stephanie Luciano versus Ravena Oliveira. Luciano, closer fights against better competition, and Oliveira has pretty much beat no one and is entirely unproven. I'm going to go Stephanie Luciano 29-28 or 30-27. Kyle Prepelec versus Drew Dober. Kyle Prepelec might have a bit of value as an underdog, but arguably should not be in the UFC. I mean, he took a fight on short notice versus BSD and he had glimpses, but hasn't really looked that great. Drew Dober, his losses are excusable. Yeah, he hasn't been on the greatest stint in his last 5 fights, but still looks pretty skillful and has had success against some of the guys that he's fought as well. So I'm going to trust that he still has it. I'm going to say Drew Dober finds a KO in round 1, a classic Dober performance on the big stage. Danny Barlow versus Jordan Santos. Danny Barlow coming off of a loss to Patterson. That loss has aged well, so in retrospect, not the worst performance. He's faster, more athletic and explosive. I like his straight shots, like his knees. Jordan Santos, his head movement is very stationary, and he had a razor close fight with Ozzy Diaz. Not the highest level of competition. I'm going to trust Danny Barlow being the more talented prospect to get this done, even coming off of a loss. I'm going to say Barlow round 1 KO. Bruno Silva versus Hyung Sung Park. Bruno Silva, even if you want to take away some of his credit due to his losses, has shown that he is somewhat that level. He's given guys competitive fights in the rankings. He's well balanced. He's powerful. He's gotten a lot of KOs. He's more experienced, and Asian prospects are just untrustworthy, and they have not been on a great run this year. There have been certain fighters that have performed well, but again, this region just does not typically have a lot of success, and I don't know if I trust Hyung Sung Park or the run that he's on. He has passed the eye test and he's shown that he's decently well balanced himself, but I think Silva can match that. So I'm going to say Bruno Silva gets this done. I think he's going to be able to put hands on Hyung Sung Park in moments, and he's going to be able to outdamage him. I'm going to say he wins a competitive decision. Give me Bruno Silva 29-28. Charles Jourdain versus Davy Grant. Look, Charles Jourdain, brother just won on Dana White Contender Series. He's in Canada. His losses aren't bad. I feel like the momentum is leaning his way, and my mind is telling me to go with Jourdain, despite the fact that Davy Grant is good, and he does pass the eye test, and he's on a decent stint. He's on a good little run, but he's almost 40 years old, and how long are you going to be able to continue said run for? We've heard about the neck surgeries. He's not in the greatest physical shape. I feel like this is Charles Jourdain's moment. I feel like he's going to have a big staple performance. He's been a top 20 to 25 guy for a minute, and we know that he's somewhat at that level, so I do kind of rate his skill, and I think he's going to be able to finish Davy Grant. I'm going to say round 3 KO/TKO for Charles Jourdain. Kyle Nelson versus Matt Frevola. Kyle Nelson probably would lose to most, if not everyone, that has beat Frevola. And there's a chance that he could catch Frevola because he's coming off of 2 KOs. You know, straight shots beat looping shots. But I don't know. I trust Matt Frevola. He's been in the rankings, or at least was in the rankings temporarily for a minute. And he has decent grappling to an extent. Good chain wrestling. He's going to have strength in those positions and the cardio advantage. And I think he's going to be a bit motivated coming off of a couple of losses. So I don't know. Give me Matt Frevola on this one. It's kind of difficult to predict, but I think I rate the skill of the performances that Matt Frevola has had so far in his career. So give me Matt Frevola 30-27, where he'll just outpoint or outdamage or outgrapple Kyle Nelson. Cody Gibson versus Ori Kulang. Cody Gibson, clean volume striker, has a couple of wins by submission, so he can potentially mix it up if he needs to. And look, Kulang, no grappling. Dude got chinned by Zahabi, so I I don't know if I can willingly pick him to win this fight. I'm going to go Cody Gibson winning a competitive 29-28. Manon Fiorot versus Jasmine Jasudavicius. Look, Fiorot has shown that she's at that level. She's more technically sound. She can perform well against high level of competition. Jasmine gets more finishes and is more dangerous, but what is her likelihood of finishing Fiorot over 3 rounds? You know, she's not going to have as much time to wear on her and really cause a certain level of damage. So I don't know. I trust Fiorot to win on counters and have a cleaner fight. I'm going to say that Fiorot gets this done by a potentially competitive 30-27 or 29-28. Marlon Vera versus Ayman Zahabi. I can't trust Marlon Vera, who has not had very many successful glimpses in his last couple of performances. He's taken a lot of punishment over his last couple of fights, and I think his problem is he's just too stationary, and we definitely saw that versus O'Malley, how many shots he actually took. And look, what it is he is losing a lot of his fights on a technical basis before he finds a finish in a lot of his wins. Or a lot of his wins are against not the greatest of competition. He's out-grappled often, so I think I'm going to trust Zahabi to get this done. I think he's got the momentum being in Canada. He's coming off of a pretty decent win over Jose Aldo, which was competitive. He's a decent grappler. I'm going to go with Zahabi, 13-2. I like the win percentage here too. Yeah, I'm going to say Zahabi wins this clearly. I'm going to say 30-27 Zahabi, pretty dominant performance. But it might be somewhat boring, and we're going to have narratives that Marlon Vera is just completely washed and should retire. Kevin Holland versus Mike Malott. Kevin Holland has always been known as a win one, lose one guy. Sure, he's the better, lengthier striker, but Mike Malott is no easy test. He's not a jobber, as Bedtime would say. The Magny loss has aged well for Mike Malott. He's a pretty decent grappler, and I think that he can defend any sub attempts that Holland legitimately threatens him with. So, I don't know, I'm going to trust the grappling of Mike Malott, and I think that even the physicality, like even with Holland being a slightly bigger guy, that Mike Malott can sort of match it. You know, Mike Malott's not a pushover. Even if he did wilt to Will Magny, a lot of guys have shown to do that. I don't know. I'm going to trust Mike Malott to get this done. I'm going to say Mike Malott actually will find a sub of his own and in exchange. Give me Mike Malott round 2 submission. Rainer De Ritter versus Brendan Allen. On paper, it should be a competitive fight. But at the end of the day, from what we've seen from Brendan Allen, he is a dumb decision maker. He doesn't have the best fight IQ, so I trust that Rainer De Ritter has a higher fight IQ. I think he's going to make better decisions when it comes to the scrambles and things. The knees up the middle will be there. Allen is a guy who is more still or stationary, and they will end up in close. So I think that if there are clinch exchanges or moments on the feet, that De Ritter, the knees to the body will be there. Rainer De Ritter has shown to have better cardio, has trained for 5 rounds multiple times now. Brendan Allen likes to fight to the level of his opponent, so again, I do expect it to be competitive, but that Rainer De Ritter is just gonna be slightly better, and that he will find a finish. He will find a finish because Brendan Allen is someone who engages in a lot of weird scrambles, and I think that will blend in to De Ritter's game more because of his weirder style. I believe that he's gonna be able to find a submission. It's gonna be competitive early, and maybe they'll both hurt each other, will they'll both be rocked in moments, but I think De Ritter will find a submission win in round 3.